Good evening. Welcome to the inaugural edition of Thursdays with NAMI. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Peg Morrison, and I'll be your host for tonight. A little bit about me, I'm the Director of Programs for NAMI North Carolina. I joined the team here after doing similar work in NAMI, for NAMI Ohio. All in all, I've been tooling around with different nonprofits for a good 25 years, not to date myself too much. NAMI, which stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has a real special place in my heart, and I'll go into the reasons as we talk tonight and in future weeks. I think we can all agree that we live in interesting times. There's this pandemic known as the novel coronavirus, causing so many people stress on so many levels. Throw in economic worries, the endlessly negative 24/7 news cycle, cabin fever, you get the idea. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of pushing back, throwing some positive energy out there to counterbalance all the other things I just mentioned. What better way than to have a conversation with my favorite executive director, Garry Kreitz. He's also my boss. So first I'm going to thank our sponsors. Please enjoy these high-tech visuals. I hope you can see that. I'm having trouble seeing it myself. Can someone tell me in the chat box if you can see this high-tech visual? Quick yes or no would be helpful. Well, rats. It was the Division of Mental Health Services logo on a piece of paper, and for some reason the green screen I'm using, this high-tech background, didn't work with that, so bear with us. This is our first show, and we're learning as we go. But I really want to thank the North Carolina Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Block Grant Fund. They are the ones who fund this program. The block grant is from the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. The division has been a steady hand since the emergence of COVID-19, and we're grateful for their support in this current era and in general. So now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and boss, Garry Kreitz. He's the Executive Director of NAMI North Carolina. Aside from being an awesome person, he has an impressive bio. Before joining NAMI, Garry spent over 20 years at Duke University as a PhD student in religion and history, a program director at Duke Continuing Studies, and most recently as Director of Operations for TIP, Duke's Talent Identification Program. Garry is committed to a person-centered approach in fulfilling NAMI's mission. In other words, he approaches each individual as a respected partner, whether he's talking to NAMI board members, his own team, our staff, folks who live with mental illness, or their loved ones. His hobbies are hiking, photography, curling, the winter sport, not the hair activity. Okay, that was another high-tech thing, my phone laugh track, so I hope you all enjoyed that. Personally, that was my favorite part of your bio. So now, Garry, I'll let you say a few words.
It is so nice to be here with you all tonight. Thank you very much. I am celebrating 8 months at NAMI. It's hard to believe that I've been here this long already. As Peg said, I came out of academia most recently. Before that, I served as a pastor for about 15 years. So let me say happy Maundy Thursday, happy Passover. I don't know what other religious holidays are tonight, but welcome. Peg and I both come from Ohio. She comes by from the Mistake by the Lake up there in the corner. I come from Northwest Ohio, which is the breadbasket of the country. But I came to NAMI. I knew about NAMI before because of a family member who struggles with mental health challenges, and I talked to one of my instructors at Duke, somebody who was teaching for me, who had been active with NAMI, about my child. And she gave me some hints and some suggestions, and I respected her so much and the work that she did for NAMI that when this position came open about 8 months ago, I decided I don't have a chance of a snowball, you know where, to get this job. But I applied, and wouldn't you know, I'm here. So I love being here, and like I said, it's been about 8 months, and it's been one of the best 8 months of my life. I wish the coronavirus had not come, but other than that, we're doing well.
That's right. And I know that you're kidding about Cleveland being the mistake by the lake. Cleveland is an amazing comeback kid city. Northwest Ohio, I won't criticize it as being a Rust Belt area or sad or anything like that, because it's not, because they
I
sent us you.
I used to go there just to watch the Yankees play because I'm a huge Yankees fan. So
Yeah, gotta love that. So tell me, how are you taking care of yourself these days, Gary?
it's really interesting because all of us here at NAMI, we're working with those people who suffer from mental illness or take care of those people that do, and we all have our own issues that we're dealing with as well, and not only our own personal challenges, but also um, having to worry about our families, having to worry about the economy, having to worry about the sickness, and so I've always believed in the importance for self-care. A few things that I'm doing. One of the things is I'm trying to build as much normalcy into my life as I can. Some of you know that I started decades ago, my daughter and I going out on a date every Saturday. So she and I would go out on a date every Saturday morning, and then I would take her mom, my wife, out for a date every Saturday evening. Um, it's all changed because of the coronavirus, but we still have our weekly dates. And now we meet by Zoom on Saturday morning instead of going to Parker and Otis. Um, I'll grab a cup of coffee and head to my family room. She grabs a cup of coffee, heads to her living room, and we just have time together. In the evening, Marianne and I will still have a date. We can't go to the mall, we can't go to the movies, but I can make a nice meal. We can watch Hallmark movies all night long. So for me, it really helps to try to carve out as much normalcy as I can in an abnormal time. Um, I'm a firm believer in taking care of yourself. My own counselor several years ago made me promise that I would carve out 2 hours every week for myself, where I'm completely off limits to everybody. And even though I'm still at home on the weekends now and I can't go out, I still carve that time out. The last thing, and this I think I need for my own personal discipline, it helps me to build structure into my life. It would be so easy for me on a Saturday to get up, eat, sit in front of the television, put on the TV, and the next thing I know, I look at my watch and it's midnight and I've let the entire day go. It's really helps me to build some structure into my life that I'm going to do this now, I'm going to do this then. One of the things that I'm doing is turning off the news as much as possible and social media. That can be really weighing on me. So those are some of the things that I'm doing that I find helpful for me at this time.
Yeah, really good tips there. I can't agree with you more about structure. It's such an important piece of mental wellness and keeping on track. The one thing that I'm savoring is that we can still go outside. My weekly hike with my dog, the walks that we take around our place, I can still do that. And I run into my neighbors and we circle about the complex where I live. And that has stayed the same. And that's a small thing that's just been very important and heartwarming.
I think we have to celebrate small things. I mean, this is a time where all we're hearing is about the negative things. We need to celebrate the positive things that are going on. We need to celebrate the small victories, like going for a walk with your dog.
That's right. That's right. So tell me, in your opinion, in this COVID-19 world, what is the same and what is different for NAMI? And how is your team pivoting to make programs available?
When you first look at it, it looks like everything is different. I mean, over half the staff are working from home now. In some ways, that's nice. There's a lot more coffee here than there usually is. There's also more toilet paper here than there usually is. But we're working from home. We're having to adjust. So instead of having staff meetings in the conference room, we're having to connect with each other by Zoom, by Microsoft Teams. We're working that way. And so it feels different, even out among the affiliates, a lot of the programs that are being done now are being done virtually. And that feels different, but there's some things that are very much the same. We're still utterly committed to the mission. The mission does not stop in a crisis like this. If anything else, the need for NAMI grows even more. We still believe in the need for advocacy for mental health. We still believe in the possibility of recovery. And so we're, as much as we can, even though we're scattered to the four winds, we are committed to letting the mission go forward. We're still answering the phones. We're still answering the emails. Virginia, as our manager of our helpline, is still, she's getting 200 calls a month, and they're really ramping up about COVID-19. We're making this transition from face-to-face to virtual. Some of the affiliates are doing that as well. This very program that we're doing here tonight, I think, came out of a realization that we can't do things as we have been doing them, but the need is still there, and how do we address it? And as probably most people already know, we've already changed the walk this year to a virtual walk. So there's a lot that's different, and yet in a very real sense, the mission is the same, and what we do is the same. It's just in different ways.
Right, and I'm so glad that you plugged our NAMI affiliates throughout the state. We have 24 local offices, and they have been bending over backwards to do what they can to be accessible, to be available, and to turn their programs into a virtual situation too. So we're doing all that we can across the state to continue reaching out to people, and we're always grateful for our affiliates and always building them up. So
Absolutely. We see ourselves as, we're NAMI North Carolina, but in very real sense, the affiliates are around the state. The affiliates are the ones, they're the heart and soul of what NAMI is. The heart and soul of NAMI is not national, as important as national is. It's not the office in Raleigh. It's the work that's being done in the trenches by people that are doing it out of the sheer love of the field, love of the people that they're working with. They're not doing it for pay. They're doing it out of passion. They are the heart and the soul of everything that we are.
That's exactly right. And in my case, for me, NAMI was there in my darkest times. I live with anxiety and depression myself. And in my lowest points, I wasn't sure I would work full-time ever again. I couldn't get comfortable in my own skin. And NAMI was one of those safe spaces where I sort of learned to feel okay again. I learned to rebuild my confidence. And that was in Toledo, Ohio, actually. So Northwest Ohio is near and dear to my heart, even though I teased you about it. Yeah, absolutely. So kudos to our affiliates. No particular reason I'm mentioning this now other than I'm thinking of it. We are recording this program, just so you know. So if you'd like to ask a question and that impacts the way you ask your question, you've been warned. We are recording this so that anyone who's not available tonight can tune in at a future date. We'll have it available on Facebook and whatnot. So heads up there. Okay, next question. Is there anything in this life right now, this era, that reminds you of, that this era reminds you of? Or is there a memory that you find yourself drawing on for strength?
That's really an interesting question. It's a good question. As you said in your introduction, I have a background in history, and it's where I live and breathe. I love history. I love historical fiction. I love historical movies. I mean, Braveheart is my favorite movie of all time, even though it's completely historically inaccurate. I love history. The other thing that I have going for me is that, contrary to it, not that long ago, now it seems like I am about the oldest person in every room that I go into. It seems like just yesterday I was the youngest person in the room. The two of those two things together, being a historian and being in the second half of my life, I think sometimes it enables me to look back with a perspective that I don't think I had when I was younger. As a historian, it's like I don't ever want to minimize what we're going through. I mean, what we're going through right now in our culture is terrible. There's no way around it. But we say a lot of times, this is just unprecedented. But we've gone through pandemics before. Some that are better than this, some that are worse than this. We've gone through this before. I mean, I'm a medievalist. You know, the 14th century, there was the plague. In the last century, we had, you know, the 1918 influenza. We had MERS. We had SARS. We had H1N1. And I'm not trying to say which one is better, which one is worse, but it's helpful for me to realize that this is not the first time that we've gone around this track. we're in a recession right now, and partially a recession that's a planned recession in order for people to be able to stay at home. And it's, even though it's painful to go through, it's helpful for me to realize that we've gone through this before. It doesn't minimize what we're feeling now. It doesn't minimize the fact that this is a struggle now, but we've gone through this before. We've gotten through this before. And to keep that sort of perspective that we're going to be going through some tough time for a while, but we're going to get through it. And if we get through it together, we'll come out stronger on the other side. It's always, I think, good to keep everything in perspective. And when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to keep it in perspective.
Right. You know, one of my favorite quotes is, "This too shall pass."
Yes.
Whether it's in my own life or history, a larger story, the narrative of the world, this too shall pass. It is comforting to think in those terms. And I appreciate that so much. I see that we have a raised hand here. We're going to ask you to hold your questions till the end. So Dana, I'll get back with you in just a few minutes. We've got a little bit more to the interview section of our program here. But thank you for raising your hand. So Garry, your last question. Clearly, this is a scary time for a lot of people, and we're not going to minimize that. But
Right.
from your perspective, have you seen any silver linings?
That's a really important question. It's a tough time. There's no way around it. We're in a tough time for everyone, especially those people that already are vulnerable because of issues they may surrounding mental and emotional health. And I think the emotional aftermath of what's going on right now is going to last a lot longer than the physical illness will. That we may be pulling out of the physical illness in a month or two, depending on who you ask. The emotional impact is going to be going on significantly longer than that, almost like a PTSD. Having said that, even though I know it's tough right now and we're all struggling, I think I'm at nature an optimist, and I think that there are good things that come out of it. And I've seen some good things come out on the larger level and also on the personal level. On the larger level, and forgive me if I become a little bit of a nerd right now, but you know, I'm excited by the potential that I see in technology right now. I mean, we're talking about telehealth, telecounseling, and studies are showing that if a telecounselor, somebody that does counseling online in the midst of this crisis, for instance, a telecounselor can be just as effective as a counselor that you see face to face. That's an exciting development. That's an exciting thing to know, because not only does it give hope to people that have like agoraphobia, that have anxiety of being in public, social anxiety, it gives hope for that. But what it also does is it increases the availability of mental health all over the state, and that is something we desperately need. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that the division in the state itself is really stepping up to the plate and saying, not only are we going to allow telecounseling, but we're going to fight to make sure that they're paid for as well, that insurance will pay. I find that exciting. The fact that we have to do some of our programming online, it's fun to do it face to face, but this has been really helpful for us to learn that there are other options out there available. I think that's especially important because so often in North Carolina, we think of the urban areas without realizing that the greatest part of the state is not urban, it's rural. So anything that we can do and technology is huge in that. A second thing that I see that's I think is a silver lining, regardless of what you might think by watching the news or by reading your feed on Facebook or Instagram, I think that more often than not, this crisis has brought out the good in people. We hear all the fighting, we hear all the sniping coming out of Washington, but it's bringing out the good in people. People are coming together. People are looking out for each other. People are checking in with each other. I mean, I have, I like to tell everybody that I have by far the best staff in the entire world. And the thing I love about my staff is that they are taking care of each other in the midst of this. And I see that happening all over the place. People are really supporting each other. And it's good to hear that, because the rumor is that everything is ugly these days. Everything is nasty these days. This is bringing out the basic goodness in so many people. The other thing that I really sort of like about, that I think is a silver lining to this, it's sort of fun. It sort of makes me laugh to think this period that we're in is forcing us to do things that we should have been doing anyway. You know, when I was 2 years old, my mother taught me to wash my hands. Why did it have to wait until I was 62 with a pandemic for me to think, oh, maybe I should wash my hands like my mom did? We're learning very basic things like how to care for ourselves, how to use common sense, what to do and what not to do when we're in public. So I don't never want to minimize the amount of pain that this is causing. It's very anxiety inducing, but I just believe that there's so much good that's happening out there too. I just think that people are showing that they can step up to the plate, and we always do in times of crisis. We always do. It's sad that we have to have a crisis to bring that out in us sometimes, but people are taking care of each other. I think all of that makes me very, very optimistic for the future.
Well, that is an uplifting statement, absolutely. And NAMI is a grassroots organization. I agree with you completely. When we look around at the local level, we look around at what's going on in our neighborhood, in our town, it's easy to find people who are lifting others up, doing outreach to the homeless in the woods. There are just so many good things happening all the time. In my case, there has been a wonderful outcome for the COVID-19 era. My siblings and I, I'm the youngest of 6, we have been having video chats regularly, much more than we ever did before. Yeah, there are 2 of us in North Carolina, 2 in Ohio, and then the outliers in California and the United Arab Emirates. We're all over the place, but now we're getting together virtually, and it's really a beautiful thing. And I noticed my brother Mike tuned in tonight, so I want to give a shout out to Mike and Debbie, his awesome wife. They're always supportive and always so good to me.
Hi, Mike.
Thank you.
You know, there's a sign at Kettering Hospital outside of Dayton that has always stayed with me. It's a sign that says, "There's nothing in the world that we can't accomplish as long as no one cares who gets the credit." And I think that is so inspiring to me, because we have so many people that are out in the affiliates. They're not doing it because they want to get credit. They're not doing it because they're doing it because they believe in the mission. I am so optimistic about what we can get accomplished. I think that we are getting ready to step into a new age of where mental health is going to be treated the same as physical health, that the stigma will finally be broken, that people won't be afraid to say, I struggle with depression, any more than they would say, I struggle with a broken knee.
Right. Absolutely. So I see a lot of good comments in our chat box. Thanks for the affirmation, folks. We're going to now wrap up the interview portion of our show and take a quick little segue before we go to our video of the week, the promised video of Roxy, our mascot and therapy beagle. I want to give a big shout out to our colleagues, our North Carolina employees, NAMI North Carolina employees working behind the scenes. Virginia Radias is helping out with the chat box. If you've messaged the panelists with a question about resources, anything like that, Virginia has been helping you. And she's always available at our helpline 5 days a week during business hours. And she just knows the most about resources in North Carolina out of anybody I know. And of course, Michaela has helped us get our technology rolling and make tonight successful.
I always tease Michaela because she's like 26 years old, and I say, you know, most people your age don't know technology, so I'm really proud of you. So
right. That's right. Okay, so now I'm going to try to do something now that I have said I'm going to share a video, and our technology is on track. Let's see if I'm telling the truth. This is Roxy Morrison, our therapy beagle and mascot, and she's going to be talking about our NAMI walk, which is virtual this year. We're interviewing Roxy Morrison about the NAMI walk. Oh, raise your hand, Roxy, if you love NAMI. Very good. Raise your hand if you enjoy the virtual walk videos. Right, give me your hand. Give me your paw. Good girl. All right, I think that's a clear vote of confidence in the NAMI walk.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Okay, so we're trying to make tonight helpful, and maybe there's some therapy and drawing support from other people. We're going for some light moments too, and that's what that was about. Okay.
Roxy is a valued member of our staff.
Yeah, she definitely makes us all smile. So, okay. So now we're in the last leg of our program, and this is where Gary and I will do our best to answer your questions if you have them. There's a Q&A icon in the sort of towards the center of your screen on the bottom, left of center. It's in between participants and polls. Of course, my screen might be different. I'm learning as I go here. So if you can click on that, let's see, I got ahead of myself. Trouble. You want to click on that, and that will open the Q&A window, and that will allow you to type a question that Gary and I will see, and we're going to answer as many questions as we possibly can by our ending time of 8:30. NAMI has a rule that we start and end on time, and we're going to do that. We might even end early tonight. Oh, someone loves Roxy. Thank you, Diana. And beagles are awesome. I can't agree with you more on those points. So let's see what we've got with questions and answers. I actually don't see any Q&A. All right. I'm going to read this. So here they come. Thanks, guys. And we're going to answer as many of these as I can, as I said. I lost my grandmother a month ago. I feel like I can't even mourn her with COVID-19 at the forefront of my mind and life. I am anxious and afraid. I don't know how to feel or what may come out of mind on any given day or minute. Any suggestions?
Mourning is difficult in the best of circumstances. The difficulty that we're having right now is that people cannot mourn in ways that are time-honored traditional ways. Let alone the fact that the attention is so often on the virus right now. A few things that I would suggest. One is that give yourself some time. Everybody mourns in their own way at their own time. When my father died, who was the greatest man that I ever knew in my entire life, I didn't cry for almost a year. And once I did, I couldn't stop. But I mourn in a different way. You'll find a way to mourn. You'll find a way to celebrate the traditions that you have. But it's also very important that if you do find that you're getting to the point that we call it that you feel like you're stuck, like you're not able to progress on, this is the time that it's perfect to talk to someone, whether it be a loved one that you're talking to that understands, somebody that's not going to give a lot of advice, or whether it's a professional. There's a time where it's like, I don't have it within myself to really get on to the next level unless I learn how to process these thoughts, and I need help to do that. And there is nothing wrong with looking for help. It'll happen in its time, but sometimes it needs a little help. Peg, maybe you have thoughts?
I love what you said about allowing yourself to mourn and giving yourself permission to mourn. I think women in particular have a hard time doing that sometimes. It's so important to create space for yourself, and it can be hard to get out of the habit of judging ourselves for having negative emotions. We feel like maybe we're selfish. We feel like everyone else is struggling more because so much is going on with the coronavirus. Your feelings are valid. Your feelings are real and they're important. And please don't feel like you have to shut them down because other people are struggling too. Your self-care is your #1 priority, and we're supporting you in that.
And I think there are things that you can do to help yourself to process and for everybody, it's different. For me, my dad died right around 9/11 in September. He died actually literally a day after I defended my dissertation. He was states away. Um, what I did is at Christmas time, Dad always made Christmas really, really special. I wrote a letter to Dad on Christmas. And then I wrote a letter on his birthday. I wrote a letter to him on the anniversaries. And I did that for enough times. And then all at once, I was done. I mean, I miss him as much as ever, but I was able to process those thoughts and say, it's okay that I'm hurting because the greatest man that I've ever known has died. It's okay. And then by allowing yourself to, you get through to healing a lot faster.
Great answer. So here's another question. People keep pushing for productivity during this virus. What do you say to them?
I am a firm believer, and I'm fortunate because I have a staff, they're very conscientious, and so I don't worry about the work getting done. But most authorities that I've been reading on the whole subject of whether you're being laid off or whether you're working at home during the midst of this crisis are saying, you have to just come to grips with the fact that productivity will be less. When a person's working at home, they're not only having to deal with a different surrounding, they don't have the same equipment with them, they have family around them as well, and they're struggling with their own issues related to this. People, we're in a society that celebrates achievement, and achievement is a good thing, but I think this is a time above all times that we should cut each other a break. You're not going to get as much done. Now, if you find yourself where you can't do anything, you're really struggling, that's a different issue. But just acknowledge the fact that during this time, you will not get as much done at home as you would have in your office. Give yourself a break. Know that maybe this break will allow you to come back stronger than ever. And I would hope that most supervisors would at least be somewhat sympathetic to that. Maybe not, but I'm hoping most would.
Right. Yeah, I think it's so important too to remember the impact of anxiety on things that make us productive, the impact of anxiety on concentration, on memory, on ability to sleep. It really does have a big impact. Even if you don't have a diagnosis, you don't need clinical care, you still have those needs. Your mental health is still going to be a factor that will be impacted by this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And one of Peg, you shared an article with me the other day that was really good that said that one of the greatest anxieties causing things is uncertainty. And that is the watchword right now is uncertainty. Everything is uncertain. Nobody knows what's going to happen over the next 3 months. That has an impact on us. And we need to give ourselves a break. We're still human.
Absolutely. Right. And one of the best articles I've seen on remoting when you're not used to remoting is to accept that there will be a dip in productivity. Your goal right now really should be to set yourself up for long-term success. So maybe that's getting an office space organized in your home, or maybe that's putting your suit on every day like you would normally, eating your lunch at the same time, going for structure, as Gary mentioned earlier. So all these things can be helpful to keep your sense of normalcy, keep your attention, your brain functioning the way it normally does, and we'll get there. We'll do it together.
And I'm using this time right now as a time to develop skills that I don't otherwise have, related to being a supervisor, relating to being an executive director. I'm buying books and I'm reading articles to help me work on skills when things are not the same around here right now.
Right, excellent points. So I hope that's helpful. Next question, have there been any concerns about having virtual NAMI support group meetings?
Peg, I'll let you take this one. I think you're best qualified.
There have been some concerns, and I think there's always fear about moving into a new way of doing business. In particular with the concerns on support groups, there's privacy, there's getting people to feel okay with the technology. Can people open up in a format that's different and strange? I will say the national office sent out some helpful guidelines a lot as far as offering a virtual support group. We will not be recording those groups. There's someone monitoring the chat box, like Virginia's helping us with tonight, to keep the chat box positive and supportive and constructive, and to avoid side conversations. There's a way you can set that up in your whatever platform you're using. For this evening, we used a password that was required to gain entry into this webinar. So that makes sure that everyone who joins us tonight is here with the right intentions, here because they want to be here and learn about NAMI, not because they're looking for a forum to shake things up. And you know, some people are in pain and they like negative attention. So there have been reports of people wandering into random meetings and webinars and posting inappropriate things. So we've taken all the right steps. I will say that NAMI Wake County, the local office that covers Raleigh and most of the Triangle area, they have done a fabulous job. Most of us are using Zoom like we're using tonight. And we've heard very good reports of how those support groups are going. Would you like to add anything, Garry?
I think you're right. I think that the fear always in a virtual kind of setting, especially when you're dealing with health issues, is what do you do if a person is in crisis? You know, it's harder in some senses to give the person the support they need in a virtual setting. And so I think the national office, I think just in general, people are trying to say, how can we use this new technology but in a way that's effective, but also a way that's safe?
Exactly. Okay, I think we've covered that one pretty well. A lighter note for us. When was the last time Garry saw the Tribe play in Cleveland?
Is there a baseball team up there?
Oh, Garry, this is from my brother. You're going to get on my bad list.
H-I-O. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike. I just can't be an Indians fan. You know, I've been worshiping pinstripes since I was a baby.
We'll have to talk about this later. He did write a.
I sign your evaluation at the end of the year. Remember that.
You make a valid point, my friend. Okay. P.S. from Mike, I am a San Francisco Giants fan, but like the Indians also. All right. Thank you, Mike. That was fun. Again, we're trying to keep it a little bit light, but also really cut to some issues that people are struggling with.
Well, can we at least be unified in that nobody likes Michigan? I mean, that should be something.
I won't argue with you. Okay. There's a question here. Any updates with MFP program and its continuation for 2020? MFP, I'm kind of struggling with that. Maybe the person, Suzanne, if you could rewrite the question and spell out MFP. I'm sorry, I feel like I should know what you're talking about, but I don't. All right. So we're going to table that. Next question. I am undergoing ECT treatments and haven't had one for 6 weeks because of COVID-19. I feel better than ever, but I'm afraid that I am going to start to regress if I don't get a treatment soon. I just started a new job after not having worked for 2 years. Congratulations, Rick. Wow.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic.
In the midst of all coronavirus precautions, they're saying, first of all, don't just show up at a hospital. Don't show up even at the emergency room with something like ECT. Be in touch with your doctor. He or she is the best person who is able to say, you're going to be okay for this period of time. This is what our plans are for the next. But it's a very touchy clinical question. It's a really important question. I would ever hate to lead you astray. And so I would suggest be in touch with your doctor. Ask if you can have a teleconference with your doctor to find out what are our steps that we need to take going forward from here. Peg, do you have any thoughts?
I would say that I've gotten a lot of support from NAMI support groups. The NAMI Connection Recovery Support Group is for folks who live with mental health challenges. To be clear, it is absolutely not a substitute for clinical treatment, but you will find people who have walked a similar path, people who know what you're talking about and maybe would have tips on what they're doing when they don't have access to treatment. That topic does come up on a regular basis. Usually it has to do with insurance issues, that kind of thing, just access to care in general. But I want to thank you for your courage for sharing that. We wish you the very best, and please feel free to call our helpline too.
And congratulations on the job.
Yeah, good for you. That's a big step. Okay, I agree that there are some positives as far as having more time to connect with friends and family. What suggestions do you have for persons who reach out to family and have a less than favorable outcome? That does happen.
It does. I think, and I think the answer has to be nuanced about whether the family are family that are here versus family that are distance. I think that we always, when it comes to family, we have to lower our expectations. It is so easy for us. My mom, and I'm not trying to minimize it, but my mom always was so upset because she felt that ours was the only family in our small town that had any problems whatsoever, and it was really challenging for her. We lower our expectations. All you can do is what you can do. You can reach out, you can make contact. You can't control how they're going to respond to it. Family dynamics are wonderful, but they're tricky even in the best of circumstances. In a situation like this, where people are living with high anxiety, in some cases, they're people that love each other very deeply, and they're finding, I just don't want to be in the same room with this person 24 hours a day for the next 6 weeks. It can really add a lot of tension. So it also helps sometimes to bring larger family groups together. When it's one-on-one, it can become much more intense. So Peg does, I know she does family type of Zooms. That might be helpful as well. Peg, you do a lot of contact with your family. What would you suggest?
We have been connecting much more using Zoom since this has come up. I think the isolation is more intense for people. My thought about finding positives when your family is not being receptive is to work to create a different family, a family of friends, a family of people who get you, a family of people who have been there. Sometimes families just have extremely different experiences within the home that they grew up in. They just have very different perspectives, and it's hard for them to connect for a while. What you can do, and this is where NAMI can be so helpful, that you can find that group of people with the common ground. They understand where you're coming from. Maybe they're not offended as easily because they hear the content of what you're saying, maybe rather than the words. I'm thinking of myself. Sometimes I communicate in a clunky way, and there are people who understand what I'm saying anyways, and there are people who have a harder time. But you know, we have a family of choice as well as our family of origin, and I know it's very difficult, and I really do understand the pain that situation can bring, but you can find other people, you know, who hear your song, who understand what you're about and understand your story in a way that maybe your family is not able to. So thank you for that question. A lot of really courageous questions, and I just want to say I appreciate that very much. All right, how do you suggest small business owners, employees, and freelancers cope with the financial impact, and how is it hurting mental well-being and stability? Finances are critical for people to survive.
Yeah, that's huge. If you have not done it already, I would encourage you to go onto the Small Business Administration website. It's sba.gov, because there are resources that are being made available right now for small businesses to survive, but also for paycheck protection. There are resources out there available. A lot of it's going to revolve around how long this is going to last. And I'm optimistic that it's not going to last maybe as long as worst case scenarios are. But there are resources out there available. I think what you can do is you can find out what financial resources are available and what emotional resources are available. And your staff are going to need both of them at this time. They're going to need not only the security of knowing that we're going to do everything we can do to keep this business afloat, but also that you value, that the staff value each other in what they're going through personally.
Okay. Right. Yeah, that is a tough one, and it's definitely so true that that finances and economic insecurity impacts mental health. It just creates a feeling of uncertainty that you can carry with you every day in your stomach, and I understand completely. I think Gary made a lot of great points. It's where you're looking back to the grassroots and finding those networks, whether it's a church or a nonprofit, or just a group of people who are trying to make a difference and start connecting with those people. Some people are working more towards bartering rather than paying everything with cash. Some communities have a time bank where it's such a wonderful concept. And I have to admit, I don't know the status in North Carolina, but the idea is that people commit a certain amount of time for their services. So I like to write. I'll write you a story or I'll write you a poem. And so if I spend an hour doing that for someone, then I can collect an hour from someone who is willing to cut my hair, for example. All of the services are equal. I love that. It's very egalitarian. You know, I'm willing to clean for you if you're willing to paint my garage or something like that. So yeah, those are some of the things that come to mind. I know it's very difficult right now.
I think this is also a time where community members help community members. Things as little as continue to, if you feel comfortable with it, continue to order out food from your local restaurant. And during this period of time, buy gift certificates that people in a business can have access to the money right now. It's not going to solve the problem, but anything that we can do to take care of it with each other, the stronger we are and the better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I see a comment in the chat box. Small business owners tend to be very proud and independent. And this, Tim is suggesting, don't be ashamed or embarrassed to seek financial help. If you're in a position to support small and local businesses, do so as much as possible. Great ideas. You can buy a business card. You can order carryout. I know my sister in Cleveland is ordering carryout once a week. Normally she cooks at home every day, but she's doing that to support her local community. Are there SBA loans, Small Business Administration loans, that might be helpful in that situation? Gary, do you happen to know?
There are. I know at least there are several different components that they're having. There are certain businesses that can get straight out grants, small businesses that will never have to be paid back. There are others that they're considered essential businesses or businesses that are very vulnerable. One of the more important ones for our perspective is there are also very low interest loans available to for nonprofits that are, you fill out the paperwork through the SBA.gov and you go to a local lender. The loans are such that if I understand the thing, 75% of the loan can go for maintaining payroll so that everybody stays on payroll. You don't have to let people off. 25% can be spent on utilities. And after a certain period of time, it can be a good portion of it can be forgiven, and even that which is not forgiven is going to be subject, I think it's to a 1%. That's for nonprofits, but there are similar things available on the grant level for individuals and also for for-profit businesses as well. We go to sba.gov and they'll be able to give you a lot better answers than I can.
Great. All right, so I'm seeing some clarification on the question about MFP. It stands for Money Follows the Person. It's an innovation waiver. I believe that has to do with Medicaid and things that the DHHS Division of Mental Health, Substance Abuse, and Developmental Disabilities Services are working on, how they were focusing on Medicaid transformation. And a follow-up question, will it most likely be cut due to stimulus checks and other federal programs? That's out of my league. I don't follow that. So I'm sure that we can find an answer for you, but that's not our area of expertise personally. And yeah, as much as I like to make up answers, I think I'm going to pass in this case.
I wonder if the person could get an answer by contacting the Division of Health and Human Services, perhaps.
I think that would be a good way to go. Okay, and this is a NAMI question. Can you send national guidelines for support groups out, virtual support groups, I assume? We're doing both peer and family support groups in Wilmington. Way to go, Wilmington. That's wonderful. And yes, we will send out those guidelines. Okay, my doctor is not seeing patients during COVID-19, not even telehealth. What should I do? I'm really upset and anxious.
Are we talking primary care? Or are we talking a mental health professional? I mean, because the answer may be different. There are a lot of things involved. This may be worthwhile to contact the local LME to get guidance on where you go from here. If your doctor is part of a practice, you know, I would contact the practice to find out if there are alternatives. Peg, can you give me some more as well?
Yeah, the answer came up primary care. And LME, for those who don't know, is your local management entity. That would be Alliance, Cardinal, Partners, depending on what part of the state you live in.
But if you contact your LME, they may be able to help you in this.
Yeah, I think that would be the best bet. The next question is, why is this session being recorded and who will have access to it? It's being recorded because we want other people to benefit from this discussion. I think it would help people. We're all about giving folks opportunities to connect. And if people aren't available at 7 p.m. on Thursdays, we want them to still have access to all of your insights and Gary's, and give them a chance to be part of this in a more limited way. That's why I have not been reading names before I read the questions. I hope that satisfies the person who asked. So we've answered 12 questions. I'm proud of us. And right now the Q&A box is empty. Is there anyone else with a question? We did budget plenty of time for this program. Maybe its natural closure time will be at 8 p.m. instead of 8:30. That's okay.
In the midst of all of this, take care of yourself, be good to yourself, allow yourself the right to be human, know that we are here to support you. Our helpline is available every day on during working hours. If you need some support, if you need some resources on where I go from here, you are never an interruption of our day. You are the reason for our day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. One last question. Do you think we will be able to have training such as family support group training virtually? Now that refers to our program leader trainings where I would learn how to go and facilitate a support group. We are hoping to do that. One thing we need to move forward with that would be approval from the national office. Otherwise, you would get trained, but you would not be recognized, and that doesn't do you much good. So I'm really hoping that we can do that. We're waiting for guidelines on that, and we're told that we should hear in a few weeks. So thank you for that question. And I'm seeing some very nice comments in the chat box. I want to thank everyone for the kind words. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Will we be sending out information about this recording so you can send it to others? We absolutely will be. Yeah, we will be sending that out promptly. Okay. Okay, we do have one more question. I'm a medical practitioner, but I'm big with mental health, and I'm very interested in becoming an advocate for NAMI. Is this the beginning of the process? Please, healthcare professionals are going to need counseling at an excessive rate, and I would like to be able to help. That's wonderful.
What I would suggest is that you contact us offline. Uh, Contact us. You can contact the main office. If the person who answers is not able to answer that question, they can put you through to the person who can. Contact us offline. We can talk to you about what the processes that are necessary to go through. Just thank you so much for your willingness to be a help. Just contact us. We're here Monday to Friday.
That's right. We're
Our
here for
office is still open.
We are indeed. Yeah, we've got a very limited staff. Most of us are working remotely, but a few of us have been coming in. So if you want to stop in, and of course we'll maintain a healthy social distance, we're here for you, absolutely. And it kind of feels to me like this is sort of wrapping up. I don't want to keep you all longer than the conversation seems to require. So let's see. This time has really flown by, and I'm really grateful to everyone for being here. Do whatever it takes to be safe. Go wherever you need to be safe. We're all thinking about you, and we'll hopefully see you next week at 7 o'clock for Thursdays with NAMI.
Thanks, everybody.
And that's a wrap.